Welcome back, guys. Welcome to Kami's Corner. Guys, we're back. We're back with another episode, and I'm so happy that you have joined me again. I have a lovely guest with me today, and like my many other guests, she is a friend, and I've known her for maybe 2 years, I think. 2 years? Yeah, 2 years. And at first, we would just see each other in church and be like, hi. And we'd have these moments where we would have some deep conversations, and then we just would not talk to each other for a while. But then we started working. We did a Christmas, so at our church we have Christmas showcases, and we were at the stables doing hot chocolate, and we just really had such a great conversation.
Yeah.
And I remember after that being like, yes, I want to hang out with this girl. I want to talk to this girl more. And she's so lovely. She's a mental health nurse. She is just a joy, the sweetest voice, and her name literally embodies who she is. So guys, please give it up for Angel. Hi, Angel.
That was so kind. Thank you.
No, it's true. Like,
It's real.
Your name is really fitting. It's really cute.
Thank you.
Well, welcome, Angel.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for being on the show. To start it off, to kick it off, I want to ask you just a cute question. Just a nice little intro. What do you see for your future life?
Wow. That's a deep question. What do I see for my future life?
Yeah.
I see myself continuously working within mental health. I like helping people, helping minds, having a family, traveling, and I guess like embedded in all of that is to do with faith and just telling people about Jesus, being an example, and enjoying life.
Yes. One thing I didn't mention is that Angel has such a beautiful heart, and she does our New to Faith at church. So she meets everyone who comes into church for the first time was new to faith, and she just always has a story to tell about someone that she's met. So yeah, I can see you doing that, like continuing. I mean, obviously that's the goal, right? Is to continue
to
be walking with the Lord. Yeah, continue with the race. But okay, so we obviously the time that we spoke during Christmas, we were speaking about mental health, and you had kind of shared your journey and shared what you had gone through, and like shared how you got through it. And so I kind of wanted you to briefly kind of give your testimony of, what your struggles, like what kind of things you went through, what you faced, and how you kind of overcame them.
So growing up, I grew up in a faith-filled home. My mum continues to, but like she just had relationship with God. And I remember like growing up being so curious about it. And I think as a kid, I grew up in an environment that was really loving and safe. And so my mental health and my well-being emotionally and psychologically, wasn't so like tainted. But things started to get a little bit more difficult when life kind of changed, and my mum got remarried, and my stepdad began to become highly dependent on alcohol, and that changed and shifted our home, and home didn't become as safe anymore. And it was really an interesting time because my biological dad left, and I never saw him again, and then he came back into my life, and this was when I was around like 12, 13. So I was just starting high school, hormones are changing, I'm in a new school, we moved into a new area, a new house, so everything's like
just
new.
a lot of changes.
And it was just really, I remember it was just a really difficult time because I was going through all these emotions, but I didn't have language to it, and I couldn't understand what was going on like inside of me. And it just felt so heavy and so weighty, and I had a lot of like internal just pain. And I think it was just because I didn't have anyone to speak to, even though I had my family, friends, and community in terms of like church and everything. I just didn't feel like there was space for that. And I think growing up at a time where mental health wasn't really discussed, if you're suffering with your mental health, or how do you deal with having suicidal thoughts? How do you deal with wanting to hurt yourself? How do you deal with feeling emotions so intensely? Because you don't really get told how to deal with your emotions or what it may feel like if you're feeling a certain type of way.
You just kind of have to get through them.
And it's like, okay, you shouldn't feel angry, you shouldn't feel upset, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. But it's like,
what if I do? Like, what do we do?
What else to do? And it's not healthy. And so fast forward, there was just a day where I was just really, really like done with everything. And I decided that I was going to take my own life. And so I had everything, everyone left the house at that point. I think it was like after school, and I was in my room, and like I said, I've got everything laid out, and God actually just met me in my room. And that was the first time that I encountered God in real life, in the sense of I grew up having a revelation of who he was and who he is by my mum and church, and just how my mum lived her life so full of faith. And I remember it being such a beautiful thing, but then it was just kind of like, how do I get to like where you're at? Because she's had a journey and a history with God herself. What does that look like for me? And I remember thinking how, yes, I'm going to church and I know some of the Bible stories, and you go to Sunday school and you sing all the songs and you do all these things, and it's like I still felt so empty inside. And I feel like it's a case of, you know, God from like a distance, but you're not face to face with him yet. And so it wasn't till that moment where he met me in that room. And I think I just remember just falling on my knees and just asking God just to take away every single pain, because it wasn't that I actually wanted to take my own life because that's what I wanted for myself, but it felt like the only solution to actually release myself from this pain that I was feeling internally. Because I think a lot of it for me personally wasn't to do with everything that was going on, because we had help and we had people, but it was dealing with things that I was feeling and thinking of myself, of my situations, and yes, things did influence that in a way, but it was a lot of it personal, and that was really hard. And so in that moment, God just met me and just told me not to give up. And I remember just kind of feeling a release and that burden coming off. But it wasn't the beginning. I mean, it wasn't the ending of the journey. Like, I'm good now. I don't have to do it. I don't have to do any of the work. I don't have to deal with any of the sadness or this pain. But that's the beautiful thing that I've learned in Christ, is that he says that if anyone wants to find their life, they have to lose it. And it's like I had to lay my life down in that moment. I had to lay down what I was thinking, what I was feeling, because for so long it was so familiar. It was so like, it was me. I thought that was me. I thought that was my identity. And I think in that moment I really had to surrender and be like, okay, God, if you're real and if you're here, I'm going to trust you. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know where to even begin. But I'm going to do it. And I've seen you work and move throughout my whole entire life. Like, please, if you do this for me,
I'll give you my life.
Yeah.
Wow. First of all, I just love how God meets people. Like, he's such a big and amazing God, right? Like, he's omnipresent. He's the beginning and the end. He's Alpha and Omega, but he meets people so intimately, and he speaks to exactly what you need. Like, the fact that he was, I mean, of course he would be there for you at that time, because that was not the end of your life, you know. And so I just find that so beautiful, that it's just at that time that you need him, and he says, I'm here, like, give me everything, give me your life, and I will, you know, the verse that says, come to me, those who are weary, who are heavy burdened, I will give you my yoke is easy, my burden is light. Like, and it really is like that. But sometimes, like you were saying, it's so hard to give him that because of the familiarity. I can't say that
English.
The familiarity. How do you say it?
Let me not even judge, because English is not my first language.
English is not my first language. I'm so sorry. Like, I can't do it. But one more time. Familiarity.
Myself now, right?
I'm so sorry. The familiarity.
Yes.
Is so I forgot. Oh, it's so, like, you're used to that. You're used to that pain, you know? And so I just want to touch on what you said, where you said you had to kind of lay your life down and give him your life. What did that look like?
So this was a journey. So this was when I was 13 all the way up to like 16, battling with a lot of internal pain. And it showed up in different ways, whether that was, I used to hate my voice, I used to hate what I looked like, or just didn't believe in myself, didn't think that life was worth it, or I didn't have anything to give.
Can I just say, I love your voice. Like, I love how you speak. So for you to even think that is just insane. But go on.
So yeah, it manifested in different ways. And so what that looked like was actually going into the Bible and seeing, okay, what is this sort of mindset of being a Christian? Because the gospel is that, you know, Christ died, we received life. He gave up his life so that we could receive life. So we're born again. And what does this mean?
That mean? Yeah.
Because I think a lot of us may live in this reality of, yes, I'm born again, and I know the gospel, and I know Jesus, and I know the whole story, and I can tell you this and I can tell you that. But inside, like, the reality is that I feel like I'm not changed, I'm not transformed. And so one of the verses that I love is Romans 12 verse 2, and it says, do not copy the customs or behaviors of this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, and let God change the way that you think.
Come on.
And I love that verse so much, because this is literally what God is saying to us, is that if we want to be transformed, if you want to become a new person, you need to change the way that you think. And so for me, a lot of my journey through was looking at my core beliefs and looking at my mindset, the roots of where these sort of thoughts
came from
and feelings came from.
Yeah.
And CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy, and I absolutely love CBT. And it looks at how our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors kind of all interplay together. And with your thoughts, that will influence how you feel about yourself, and how you feel about yourself, or how you feel towards a situation. That impacts how you behave, and then that's the reality that you live in, right? And I just find it so funny, because the Bible literally talks about how so a man thinks.
Oh, so a man thinks he
is?
Yeah, he is.
And I always butcher that verse. It's someone, Proverbs, I think.
Yeah.
But essentially, becoming anew was rewiring my mind, rewiring, going to the roots and rewiring, like replacing lies with truth. Because I think a lot of people, especially when you're suffering with mental health struggles, or, you know, your thought patterns and all these things that are going on in your mind, we're so quick to run to, okay, what's the solution? What can I do? What do I need to do just to quickly get myself out of it? But it's actually recognizing that you have to invite yourself back to the very place that you're in, and actually dig to the root of it, get to the root, like see what's actually happened, what's caused you to think this way and feel this way. And some things are a lot more embedded with like trauma and just, you know, your upbringing and your environment. So there's lots of different sort of factors to it, not just your mind and all these things, because everything that you experience from the moment that you're a baby to growing up shapes your life and shapes your well-being. So there's a lot of things in that, but essentially for me it looked like going into the roots of how I was feeling and thinking, and dealing with that.
Yeah, I think I love what you said just then about sometimes we want to find a solution quick. And I find, because after we had that conversation during Christmas, I was saying how I wanted to start therapy because you were telling me about your journey on therapy. And so coming into 2024, I actually was like, okay, I'm going to do it. Like, I'm going to start like going to therapy. And so I've been on that journey of going to therapy and kind of just going back to, you know, the places and the traumas that I've dealt with in life that are making me have certain thoughts and certain ideas about myself. And I am very much someone who wants to find solutions. Like, I want it sorted now. Like, I want to be better now. And I keep saying that to my therapist. I keep being like, why? Like, why do I feel like this? Like, why am I going through this? Like, why do I think like this? Why this? Why? It's always the question of why. And it's always the question of when will I be better? Like, I just want to be better. I just want to be fine. But it's like what you're saying of, you just have to go back to that place and feel it, because there've been so many times where I've left like the session and I just lie in my bed and I just cry. Yeah. Because you're just remembering like all the things that have happened to you, and you're remembering how, and you're seeing how detrimental like those things were to you as a child, and you're remembering how now as an adult you're processing the feelings that you couldn't process when you were younger. And it's so hard to do that. But I find that as much as I still can sometimes have those thoughts, I find that I know now why they're there. And so it's easier for me to be like, I rebuke that in the name of Jesus, because I know that I'm
take those thoughts captive.
I know how to take the thoughts captive now, because I'm like, okay, I know that that's not true. Because sometimes now what I'll do, I'll ask myself, I'll be like, okay, so why do I feel like this? Where's this coming from? What happened? Or what did someone say that made me feel? Do you know what I mean? Like I can sit back and track and be like, okay, it's not the person. This person didn't do anything. This person didn't say anything. It's me. And they've triggered something that has taken me back to, say, if I was 10 or 11 or whatever. And now I can be like, okay, it's all right. You're still fine. You aren't what you think you are. That person doesn't think you're horrible. Like, it's okay, you know? So, like, it's a journey. I'm still on it. And some days are really, really hard. But it really is true that you kind of have to sit in it. And sitting in it is the worst thing. But you have to. Like, you know, as Christians, we always talk about seasons. So we always talk about, you have to go through the season. You have to do this. You have to do that. We always like, you can't rush the seasons, you know, like the Bible talks about.
But it's interesting though, because it's like when it comes to suffering, that's like, wait, you can go, like people will be like, you know, you have to go through these hard seasons, but then when you're in that suffering, when you're in the pit, that's when you're like, oh, actually,
I gotta
take a seat.
Like, I gotta
take a seat. And it's like, that's the beautiful thing about Jesus, is the fact that he doesn't call you away because of what you're going through, but he's like, no, like, come closer, but also I'm right here with you in this very pit.
Yeah, and I'm not going to leave you there, because
he's not going to leave us
there. Here.
No, like,
because like sometimes the choice is on us, because when we go through those things, or go through, just mental ill health. Like, you just want, there is that want to just sit in it and stay in it. But Jesus is like, no,
Yeah.
we're not going to stay in this place. We're actually going to go to the next level. We're going to go to the next step. We're going to heal from this. We're going
And
to
that's
get better.
relationship. Like, it's being vulnerable, and it's inviting God into that very space that you feel so like, no, I can't, because you're not allowing other people to come into that. And I think with just vulnerability, it's hard because it's painful, but you need to be vulnerable to a safe person, but also most importantly to God, because it's like God knows you. He made you. Like, he knew before you were even in your mother's womb. Like, he knows every detail. He's designed you in such an intricate way, and it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful when you actually like meditate on how, no, God doesn't hate you because you're dealing with mental ill health or you're struggling poorly, because that's one thing I want to say also, that you can be a Christian and you can have depression and you can go through anxiety, because those are feelings and emotions, but it's recognizing that that is not your story. That's not your identity, because you are made anew in Christ. And so that's the hope that you have. And I think sometimes, especially when it comes to healing, people will say, well, you need to pray more, and you're not praying enough, or you're not praying right, or you're not doing enough, or you're not doing right. And that's a lie. Like, I'm here to say it's a lie. It's a lie. Because healing is not just about not having it anymore, but it's actually being able to face on what once hurt you, recognize that, grieve that, accept that, but also move on from it. And that's what a transformed mind does.
It does.
Because when I was going through my walk with it, I had to come to terms that this is how I felt for a long time, and this situations happen because of X, Y, Z, and God had to teach me that it's okay to feel this way, because that was my reality. He doesn't diminish it, but he's like, let me step into it, let me make it for your good. And it's like that verse when in Psalms that says that God is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. I have that personal revelation because I know what it's like to be broken on the inside. And it's like, if we want to say that we have faith in Jesus and we believe in the word of God, because sometimes I think we can say all these things and know all these verses, but do you have a personal revelation
of that,
because the Psalms, they weren't written just so that you can just say, this is where you come when you're feeling sad. No, because they had a personal revelation. When Jonah was under that tree and he said, God, I want to end my life. He didn't put that in there because he's like, because people are going to read this and they're going to relate to this. No, because he had that reality. And this is the beauty of faith, is the fact that we can invite God into our mess and he can make it even so much more beautiful. And it's like Brandon Lake has, is it a song or an album? It's You Turn Graves into Gardens.
Oh, it's a song.
Something into gardens. And I love that perspective. Because it's like what was once dead, he makes alive.
Yes. And during the week I was reading Elijah. Was it Elijah? No, it wasn't Elijah. But the story of the dead bones that come to life, and it's literally what you're saying. That's not Elijah. I remember who it is, but who was it? Was it Elisha? I think. Sorry, my mind is fixated now. Everyone's like,
I know some people in the comments like, no, it's not. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, tell us in the chat. W's in the chat. But no, that's what God does. He brings dead things to life, And I think whilst you were speaking, then, when we bring it to the feet of Jesus, when we bring how we feel to the feet of Jesus, he transforms, like he gives you a peace that surpasses understanding.
Yeah.
And when you talked about that, for me, there's a verse in Psalm 40 where it says, I cried out to the Lord and he heard me.
Yes.
It took me out of the deep,
Come on.
of the mud and the mire, and he set me on a steady solid ground.
Come on.
And at the beginning of this year, it was touch and go, guys. Touch and go, okay? Touch and go. And I have a personal revelation of God picking me up and steadying me on my way. And I have a personal revelation of his peace that surpasses understanding. Like all understanding. Because there were times when, when you are in a place where you just want to run away. You just want to run away. You don't want to deal with it. You want to run away. And I had one of those moments where I was like, I don't want to go to church. I don't want to do anything. Like, I don't want to do anything. I just want to stay in my little hole and just stay there. And I remember just praying and being like, okay, God, I really need you in this right now, because I am just hurting. Like, life is hard. Things are going crazy and I need you right now. And I promise you, guys, I went to church that day and I just remember having this peace. I was like, okay, fine. And something had happened at church and I got a bit upset about it. And I remember I went into the creche. They have these rocking chairs in the creche. Life-changing. But they're right at the back. They're right at the back. And I remember sitting on that rocking chair and I was crying and I was like, okay, Lord, like I need you right now. Like, just be with me. This really hurts. I'm struggling. And we had a YA, the meetings that we do before setting up. Yeah. And we had that in like 20 minutes or something like that. So I was like, God, I just really need you right now. Like, I really need you right now. And I remember I wiped my tears, went to our YA meeting, and I was fine. Like, just peace, just an overwhelming sense of peace. And I said, God, thank you. Just thank you, because he allowed me to get through my everyday. And that's what he does. He allows you to get through your everyday. Like, when Elijah was like, take this cup, and the angel was like, here's some bread, here's some water, drink. Literally.
Sometimes you need to eat and sleep.
And eat and sleep. But he got me through my everyday. He got me through it. Like, I didn't want to wake up, but I woke up. I didn't want to go to work, but I went to work. I didn't want to, like, so many things. I didn't want to go to church, but I went to church. Like, he gave me a peace that surpasses all understanding.
And like, sorry to put you off, but just, you mentioned the verse in Matthew, come to me all who are weary, that. And that's what it looks like, because when you take on his yoke, you did that with God. And so that's the beautiful thing in your story, because what I'm hearing is you depended on him. You brought him into the very space that you were feeling. You didn't cry on your own or just be like, I'm not going to cry, I'm going to tough it out. But you actually brought God into it. And that's what it looks like to partner with God, to journey in faith with God, is being like, no, like, I'm going to be real. I'm going to be vulnerable. This is how I'm feeling. This is how I'm thinking. Let's do it together.
Yeah.